Asterisk, is the world standing on the edge of a new devastating war? There are moments in history when a question stops being curiosity and becomes a kind of silent pressure in the global atmosphere. Heavy, invisible, and impossible to ignore. It feels like the air itself has changed, as if something unseen is building beneath the surface, and no one can confidently say where the first spark will fall, or which direction the first explosion will echo from. When tensions between the United States, Iran, and Israel are examined today, it is no longer just a matter of three states in disagreement. It becomes a reflection of a global system under strain, where the balance of power is constantly being reshaped, adjusted, and challenged in real time, and where every decision carries consequences that stretch far beyond the present moment into decades ahead. The roots of this unfolding reality do not lie in recent headlines. They are embedded deep in history, particularly in the transformations that followed 1979, when the political landscape of the Middle East began to shift in ways that reshaped alliances, intensified rivalries, and replaced diplomatic trust with strategic suspicion. Over time, dialogue was gradually overshadowed by coercion, and understanding gave way to calculated deterrence. What started as political divergence evolved into a layered structure of pressure, sanctions, countermeasures, and indirect confrontations that continued to expand through proxy networks and regional alignments. As the years progressed, the divisions did not narrow, they deepened. Each decade introduced new dimensions to the confrontation. Covert operations, economic restrictions, intelligence competition, and localized conflicts that carried the weight of larger geopolitical struggles. What once might have been contained within traditional diplomacy has now expanded into a multi-domain environment, where cyber capabilities, missile systems, intelligence warfare, and technological superiority shape the contours of influence. In this setting, power is no longer measured only by conventional military strength, but by the ability to operate across invisible layers of conflict. Today, the United States continues to navigate its strategic interests in the region, attempting to preserve influence while avoiding full-scale escalation. Iran, shaped by decades of external pressure and internal resilience, increasingly frames its regional posture through the lens of sovereignty and survival, where strategic depth and deterrence are essential tools. Israel, on the other hand, operates under an acute security doctrine that prioritizes preemption and rapid response to perceived threats. When these three strategic logics intersect, the result is not stability, but persistent friction, an environment where tension does not disappear but fluctuates between containment and sudden escalation. Recent developments have further intensified this fragile condition. The pattern of direct and indirect strikes, missile exchanges, and targeted operations has introduced a level of immediacy that reduces the margin for error. Proxy networks operating across different theaters add another layer of unpredictability, ensuring that localized incidents can rapidly gain broader geopolitical significance. In such an environment, even a small miscalculation can trigger a chain reaction, where responses are driven not only by intent, but by perception, pressure, and the need to project strength. At the same time, diplomacy has not disappeared. Behind official statements and public posturing, channels of communication remain active. Various international actors continue to engage in mediation efforts, recognizing that a full-scale conflict would not remain confined to a single region, but would likely disrupt global energy markets, economic stability, and security frameworks across continents. These efforts, however, operate within a narrow corridor of trust, one that has been severely eroded over time. Each side interprets the other's actions through a lens of suspicion, making breakthroughs difficult even when the incentive to avoid war is clear. From Iran's perspective, strategic behavior is shaped by years of sanctions, containment policies, and regional competition. This has reinforced a doctrine centered on deterrence, resilience, and strategic autonomy. For Israel, security is treated as an immediate and non-negotiable imperative, where potential threats are often addressed before they fully materialize. The United States occupies a more complex position, balancing alliance commitments with the recognition that uncontrolled escalation could produce consequences that extend far beyond the region itself, affecting global stability in unpredictable ways. When viewed together, these dynamics reveal something larger than a trilateral confrontation. They expose a global system under continuous stress, where competing interests, security concerns, and ideological differences intersect in ways that make stability conditional rather than permanent. The core issue is not simply power imbalance, but the absence of a shared framework of trust that can regulate escalation. In such circumstances, restraint depends less on agreement and more on calculation, which is inherently unstable. The present situation exists in what analysts often describe as a high-risk equilibrium, a condition where open war has not begun, but the probability of escalation remains consistently elevated. In such a state, the system is sensitive to shocks. Misinterpretations, sudden reactions, or isolated incidents can escalate rapidly because each actor is already operating under heightened alertness. This creates a paradox. The desire to avoid war exists simultaneously with the constant preparation for it, and that duality itself increases instability. Amid all of this, the most vulnerable position is occupied by ordinary people. Decisions are made in strategic rooms far removed from daily life, yet the consequences unfold in cities, homes, markets, schools, and hospitals. Civilian life becomes a background layer to geopolitical calculations, where uncertainty shapes routines and every new development carries emotional and psychological weight. Fear becomes not an event but a condition, subtle, persistent, and cumulative. What makes the current moment particularly significant is the narrowing space between tension and transformation. The system is suspended between two trajectories. One path leads further into escalation, where each response generates a stronger counter-response, gradually reducing the possibility of controlled outcomes. The other path requires sustained diplomacy, restraint, and a willingness to redefine assumptions about security and victory. This second path is not merely political, it is cognitive. It demands a shift in how power, survival, and success are understood. The central question, therefore, is not only whether a larger conflict is possible, but whether the current architecture of international relations is capable of preventing it. History repeatedly shows that wars do not begin solely because differences exist, but because mechanisms for managing those differences fail or are abandoned. When communication weakens and suspicion becomes dominant, the likelihood of miscalculation increases dramatically. At this stage, the world stands in a space that is neither peace nor war, but something far more unstable, a threshold condition where the next move could determine the direction of an entire era. One direction leads toward deeper confrontation, while the other requires restraint strong enough to resist the logic of escalation. The outcome will depend not only on military or political decisions, but on whether decision-makers can tolerate uncertainty without converting it into force. The uncertainty remains, but so does the possibility of choice.